Welcome to the first episode of our Inner Sparks featured stories. I am Lily Yan, your host of this podcast and founder of our Inner Sparks Network, a network of ordinary women sharing our extraordinary stories to inspire and empower each other and others. Women take ourselves for granted and do not often give ourselves credits or see our own values. We must celebrate our successes, help support, and inspire each other. In this episode, we will be chatting with yoga instructor Julie DaSilva. She's a very special person to me and to this network, and you will soon find out why she's the very first ever featured guest. About 2 years ago, I started my journey of self-care and self-love. I decided to join a gym for the very first time in my life. Lucky for me, I found Julie at our local Crunch Gym teaching yoga. Since then, Julie has been one of the major inspirations in my continued commitment on the journey of self-love. In my view, she is not only a yoga instructor, she is truly a life coach through the practice of yoga. In fact, this very network, our Inner Sparks, began its life in her class, where I was able to shed all other thoughts and noise in my life through guided meditation and found my higher calling. Others in her class have also said that she has changed their philosophy in life, which have helped them overcome challenges in their lives. I can't wait to share with all of you Julie's thoughts on her journey with yoga and self-love. Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Lily. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're looking forward to you sharing your story. So before we get started, could you give us a little bit of introduction of yourself and what do you do in the world of fitness and wellness?
My name's Julie. I'm born and raised in Cambridge. I've been teaching yoga for 8 years now. My yoga journey started about 10 years ago. I want to inspire other people to fall in love with themselves. So yoga brought that into my life, and then I just wanted to share it.
So what originally brought you to the practice of yoga?
For me, I believe that yoga finds you when you need it. And at that time, 10 years ago, I was just feeling confused, holding on to anger, and I was looking for ways to let that go without taking on bad habits. So I went to yoga, and oddly enough, I didn't like it when I first started. Yeah. It took about the fifth time that I tried it, and that fifth class, something awoke in me, and I fell in love. I felt enlightened. I felt peaceful, and I knew I needed to continue on that journey. I wasn't sure at that time that it would be my career, but I knew I needed to do more of it, and the more I did, the more I wanted to share my love for it, because it really helped me find balance. And that's, again, not to say like people think because I teach yoga that I don't have bad days or bad emotions. I still do, but the yoga practice allows me to be more aware and make the changes in my life that I need to toward the goals that I want, which my goal is to be happy, which I think that's most of our goals.
Right. Absolutely. And I was just going to say, you said something in your introduction a little bit resonated with me. You're doing it because you want people to fall in love with themselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yoga has brought me back to fall in love with myself.
Right. And that's, for me, really something that I've gotten from yoga and practicing yoga and listening to myself, hearing myself, what my own needs are, and what I desire to do, what my higher callings might be.
And honoring that.
And honoring that.
Because it's one thing to know, but it's quite different to practice. And that's what yoga's helped me with. A lot of things I knew because, I read books and stuff, but it's the practicing. So when you start to practice yoga and you do it regularly, I often tell people if you practice at least twice a week, you'll really feel the benefits fall into your daily life.
Yeah.
So it starts first as a physical practice, because even just the stretching, when you hear the cracking, that's like all tightness and tension in your body, letting itself go. Mm-hmm. And essentially, we need to let that stuff go in order to create space for our new vision, for our new passion. And it's okay if that keeps changing because we're evolving humans. You don't need to be stuck on something, but I believe that you should continue to grow and learn and surround yourself with like-minded people, because that's the only way you're going to continue the practice.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, when I don't come in for a week or 2 weeks, I feel it. And it's not just in my body. I feel it in my mind. I feel like I need to go somewhere where I can actually start to quiet down all the noise that it's actually, overwhelming me. And I find great serenity when I go to that space. And it's like you said, it's a community. You almost feel the energy that's in the room. You feel, like, I think you talk about that all the time. When
Absolutely.
you're
Sometimes even when I'm
right?
down and I feel like, oh, it's not really fair to my students that I'm in this energy, because we get self-guilt, right? Like, oh, why am I? Because, I'm pretty blessed. So for me to have a bad day, some days I feel guilty about having a bad day. But I'm a human being, and life happens. And some days, I carry the guilt and the shame from past mistakes. And I think that's what's caused a little bit of that need 10 years ago. I was stuck in not forgiving myself. And the truth is, we all make mistakes. We do the best that we can with what we know. So yoga has taught me, like you were saying, to just quiet the mind, bring myself into that space where I can reflect and take the time to forgive myself and understand that we're all human, and to keep going. And when I'm feeling down and I go in, I can feel the love in the room.
Yes.
I feel the love and the support. And that's why it's really, it warms my heart, the community feeling of, I don't just go in there for you, but I also go in there for myself. Because when I feel that love and I'm on a down day, it elevates me. Some days I want to cry because I can actually feel the love coming toward me.
Right.
When I am in that funk. But I go to my class. I think one of the things that my students appreciate is that if I am having a bad day, I'll say, I'm having a bad day today.
Right.
But I showed up.
Right.
And I'm giving you all that I got, and it might not be a lot, but I'm here.
And also, I think we're there for you as well.
Absolutely, because when I leave that class, and after I've shared that with my students, I feel better. I feel lighter. I feel happier.
And
supported. I always say, I'm so grateful that this is my job.
Right.
Because there's some days where I need to applaud people, because if it wasn't my job, I'm not sure I would have gotten out of bed.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like on those dark, cool days, I have those feelings too, where it's like, oh, it'd just be better in my bed. But then I get to my class and I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky. This is my job.
Yes. And we're very lucky that you're doing this as well.
Oh, thank you.
Exactly what I was saying. We get so much from you, but then it's a community. We're there to offer as well, support when needed. And we are there always looking within ourselves what else we need, and how do we continue that self-love and self-care, and really supporting each other through that journey.
Supporting each other. That's what I was going to say is one of my proudest moments, or one of the proudest things for me, is seeing the friendships that are built in front of me. Yep. Seeing the progress in people's practice and their mentality, how they come in, and seeing each other, seeing you all support each other. It warms my heart. When I hear, oh, we're going for coffee, or so-and-so, and I, we did this together, and I'm like, wow, because I know that you met
because of the class.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So I think you touched upon the driving force for you to teach yoga and why you became a yoga instructor. So let's talk a little bit about your style. Okay, so I've been to yoga classes before and never been at a gym class, but I've done it in a corporate world where they bring in yoga teacher. We go through kind of the patterns and the motions and the flow and the strengthening, and it's all been really great. And I appreciate every moment that I had with all of those classes. But then I come to your class, and it's different. So I'm going to let you explain that a little bit.
Well, I do teach at the gyms, but I also do go to corporate places. So, but my style is just my style.
Yes.
And I guess I'm what I would call a free-flowing spiritual gangster. Sometimes you'll hear a little bit of R&B or hip-hop on my playlist. My music, I do love music as well. So when I sit and make a playlist, there is thought into it. I do look for songs that have words of meaning, or sometimes I use songs that you don't understand, but the mantras are telling, like, so this one song, Ekongar, it's taking your negative energy and making it positive. You don't know it's saying that, but I do. So sometimes I will make an intentional playlist. All my songs are always intentional, but sometimes I'll do one for love or for, certain chakras. And you might not be aware of it, but people will tell me things after class where I'm like, yes, I hit what I wanted.
Yeah.
So my music is a big part of my flow. I don't go in with a pre-plan. I used to pre-plan or try to pre-plan my classes because that was a part of the yoga teacher training. But in conversations that we've had before, I've told you that part of it stresses me out, having to sit and write it down. So that's when I realized I'm just a free flower. For me, it's just to make sense in how to move your body with, I'll come in and I'll say, what are you feeling today? What would you like to stretch out? My goal in a class is to stretch out every muscle at least 2 times, every part of your body. But if someone, requests shoulders, then I'm intelligent enough to know a series of shoulder stretches. And then because of my love for it, I just use my music and my energy flow to create a flow on the spot.
Yeah, and on top of that, I'm going to say that you create a flow on a spot for specific needs as well.
Absolutely.
There are people that come in with specific needs that they're unable to move certain part of their body due to injury or whatever the case is. You will then take the time, while everyone is stretching a certain way, take the time and go specifically give instructions to those people and so that they can get the benefits too.
That's one of the biggest challenges with teaching yoga in a gym. And I think that's why I love teaching yoga in the gym, because I like challenge. I know some people run from it and change, but I embrace change. And challenges, I often refer to myself as a problem solver. Bring me a problem and I will solve it for you.
Right.
Because yoga is for every body. And I have taught ages 3 to 96. So any yoga stretch can be done various ways. You can do it on the floor, standing, sitting. It's about taking the time to ask the questions. So in the gym, I'll have all levels.
Right.
I have people who have been practicing yoga longer than me, which in the beginning was a little intimidating for me. Before I had the growth of myself, my own self-love. Right? To not compare myself to someone else, because that's a big part of self-love is we're constantly comparing. But in that space, also having somebody that's walking in for the very first time, or somebody, you've been in the classes with people who have injuries, and I'll pull out a chair or a block or a strap because I want everybody to feel comfortable. But with that being said, I also need to rely on the community for my advanced yogis to have the patience when I say, I'm just going to take a second here and relate to the beginners because we have a bunch of new people in the house today.
Right.
I'll notice because I know who my students are that come regularly. Right. If I see a new face, and I like to just sort of give them a little bit of extra encouragement, if you will, or suggestions on how to take the stretch a little bit deeper. And it really helps to have the community that supports that.
Right, absolutely.
So all of the people that come to my classes are very supportive of that. It is, I remember one time a friend of mine coming for the first time and coming into a pose that was a challenging pose, and the whole room clapped.
Oh,
and
that's great.
He was so overwhelmed with joy that day. He was like, the loving community, the love I felt in that room, Julie. And I was like, yes. That's what I want. And that's just it. We're all happy for each other.
We are. We are really
when
there
we have
for
the
each other.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think you often say very impactful things in the room, and this is like throughout the whole class. You would like drop these lines, and I think there are 3 that really stuck with me. Okay, that really spoke to me, and maybe to other people it's different things. Maybe because I needed the most to hear those things. But those 3 things I think you repeat. At least I feel like you repeat it every class, and likely you repeat a whole lot of other things too. But these 3 things that are very prominent for me in your class. Number 1, and we can talk about this in detail a little bit in each of them. Number 1, be grateful.
Amen.
And we can talk about that a little bit. And then number 2, be kind to yourself.
That's the biggest one.
Right. And then third one for me is you are enough. And all 3 of those align very often to, what I'm going through. And I guess let's take some time and talk a little bit about each of those things, and one or
so
all
you're
of them.
right. Those 3 things I mentioned all the time in my classes. So when you asked earlier about my style of yoga, I often will tell people as well, it's more of a guided meditation. So I'm constantly using words of affirmation. I'm constantly reminding people that they are enough, to be kind to yourself, and gratitude, because those are 3 really big things that will help, I think, to make you a happier person.
Right.
In your daily life, because happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey. So those 3 simple things I remind myself every day really help to have a happy day.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They really help to have a happy day. So my class is the moving meditation. I will use those words. I use them to help keep you in the space. Some people get stuck on the word meditation. And to be honest with you, I couldn't meditate until I started doing yoga. And when I first started practicing yoga, my mind would drift. So I'd be doing the movements, and I'd be thinking about the things I needed to do, or what was, hurting me that day, or I wasn't really present. Mm-hmm. So when I found the style of yoga that I liked, it was with an instructor who did a guided meditation. And I just remember the words of affirmation. I remember crying in that first class that I loved. So that was my 5th time trying yoga. So please hear that, people, because I hear a lot of people tell me, I tried yoga, I didn't really like it. I tried it 5 times. It was only on the 5th one that I was like, wow, I love this.
Good for you that keep trying that.
Because everyone kept talking about how good yoga was for you. And I was trying to find that.
Right.
Because I have a very busy personality. Anyone who knew me 10 years ago would have laughed at me and I did have a couple people laugh at me when I said that, I want to teach yoga. Because knowing me, you would think I would have been more of a Zumba instructor, just with that, personality. Yeah. But for me, what I realized was I needed that quiet. And my practice has even changed in the 10 years. So when I first started, I started more with invigorating practices. Right. The hot yoga, the fast-moving yoga. Because the yin style of yoga, the slower yoga, I couldn't sit with my thoughts still at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm teaching a class, I often say, I'm giving you so many things to think about. You shouldn't be thinking about the stress in your life. Because right now I'm telling you to think of, are your joints aligned?
Right.
Is your core strong? Is your spine long? Is your heart open to the possibilities? Are you breathing fully? Can you believe that most of us only use about 30% of our lung capacity? And without even really realizing it, we're doing these short breaths. But when we're doing those short breaths, we're creating a signal of stress to our body.
Right.
So learning to think about my breath.
Right.
And so, okay, think about your breath. But then those thoughts still come, which is the
exactly.
problem with meditation, right? And then we get disappointed in ourselves. I stopped thinking about my breath. It's okay. Be kind to yourself. Let that thought come. Right. Let it go, and then bring yourself back to breath. So back to breath. I just talked about this in my class the other day. Maybe for you, it's breathing in a word of affirmation and exhaling an energy that no longer serves you. But you're breathing in good and releasing the stress.
Right.
Maybe for you, it's counting your breath. Inhaling. There's so many different breathing exercises, Lily, and that's why I say to people, it's not right or wrong, because some people say, are you supposed to expand on the inhale, deflate on the... It's whatever has you focused on your breathing. Because if you're focused on your breathing, if you're focused on your posture, then you're present.
Right.
And if then you're present, then you're calm.
And then you receive those words of positive energy, right? So I thought what resonated with me a lot is a lot of times we have these stress and these things happening in our life, and we take a lot of good things for granted.
Absolutely.
So be grateful to me is one of the biggest thing. Constantly reaffirm what is good in my life, and then look past some of those bad things, because it will happen in life. And
bad things will always happen, but you need to decide how you're going to look at that bad thing. Are you going to look for the lesson? Are you going to be the victim? Or are you going to be the survivor and help other people?
Love that.
Because there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be something terrible that happens. But through my experience at this point in my life, it's through those really terrible, dark moments that I came out stronger and brighter.
Right? And it is in your control, like you said. You can decide to be a victim, or you can decide to do something with that energy and make something different.
But you can't control anybody else. And I think that's like one of the biggest lessons.
Right.
is no matter how bad you want something for someone else, they need to want it for themselves.
Right.
So we only have control of ourselves and our reaction.
Exactly. And I think we can talk a little bit about that. You are enough too. A lot of times we want everybody else to be happy with us so that we can feel happy. But really, right? It's impossible to do because you can't control.
What a pressure
right?
for someone else. I
Right?
need you to make me happy.
Right. And you can't control what other people are going
No.
to do in their lives, but the only thing you have control is yourself. And then understanding that you yourself is enough. Your own happiness is enough, and your own dreams and life and whatever you do is enough. And everything else is icing on the cake.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you look at it in that way, you feel stronger all of a
Absolutely.
sudden.
I actually tattooed the word enough on my body.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, look at that. Yes.
And when it's funny because when I got the tattoo, the artist was like, it's upside down because it's not facing
others.
others.
Yeah.
And I said, but it's not for others. It's for myself.
That's right.
And I teach yoga. So when I inhale my arms up, my students can see it.
Yeah.
Which is, so enough has so many different meanings though. Like, I wish you enough because you need enough rain to appreciate the sunshine. We need enough darkness to appreciate the light.
Right.
Right? Those are where the biggest lessons are. And then as far as I am enough, which is big, I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. Mm-hmm. We need to remind ourselves of that. But that comes when you start to let go of the ego. Your ego is your biggest challenge. It's been my biggest challenge anyway. Right. Because, and especially with social media and commercials and marketing, we're constantly comparing ourselves. When it's really just a glimpse, like this is just a glimpse, but we're constantly comparing ourselves. So when you remind yourself, I mean, how special is it that there's nobody else in the world like you?
Yeah.
Like you're
We don't
unique.
think about that. We don't think about that.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
And we are all here trying to figure out this journey when there's some things we're just not meant to know. And if you're trying to figure it out, you're going to stress yourself out. So just know that where you are is where you're meant to be. And what you have is enough. I really, really believe that what's meant for you will always find you. Whether that's good or bad, whether you have a lesson to learn, you can keep trying to run from it, but it will keep catching up to you until you learn that lesson. Because I've had people say to me, I'm a good person and these terrible things keep happening to me. And I'll say, we're all good people. Mm-hmm. You're judging the person that hurt you, whereas I'm trying to look now and see that when someone hurts you, they're coming from a place of hurt.
Right. It's less of a reflection of you.
It's not a reflection of you at all.
Yeah.
I posted something on my story the other day about whatever you believe with conviction, whether it's true or false, is your reality. So yes, I know that there's some days suck, some things, but I'm not going to sit there and focus on this crappy thing happened or, this has me feeling glum. I'm going to remind myself on those days, I have a roof over my head. I have a job that I love. Yes, it's cold. People have been complaining, about the weather. Oh, it doesn't. But we live in Canada, folks. You live where there's 4 seasons.
Yes.
So I'm grateful I have a winter jacket.
Yes.
I'm grateful I have a roof over my head, a blanket if I'm cold.
I remember there was one day you did this in the class and you said, I'm grateful that I was shoveling my driveway.
I remember you sent me a message on that. I have a driveway to shovel.
I love
and
that.
a healthy body.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Yeah,
You're healthy
enough.
enough.
And I remember there was times going, ugh. But that morning I woke up and I was like, what are you ahhing about? You have a driveway, Julie.
Yeah, I love
Your body's
that.
healthy.
Yes.
You have a shovel.
Yes.
A jacket that you can be warm with.
Yeah.
And it's actually nice to be outside and catch the fresh air. I need outside.
It really is some days.
I need outside air every day. Everybody should go outside every day for at least a half hour. Doesn't need to be a full half hour, but 10 minute. You need the fresh air.
Yes.
Nature is what helps me sort of get back into. It's a reset.
Nice.
A reset. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I have to say, these ideas that you bring into your yoga, being your style, is exactly why I come back. And some days I follow you, and you know that. I go
you'll come to 2 classes in the same day.
I'll go to 2 classes
I
on
love
the same
it.
day because I can't get 2 classes in the week. I'll do it in one day, right? So and you probably seen it, but I have had tears leaving your class. Because those are the things in the affirmation that you were giving that day was exactly what I needed. I needed to hear those words. I needed to stop feeling sorry for myself. And knowing that I am enough and I'm able to make those changes, and I am in control with my own destiny, and I can do it. So I appreciate that fully, and I'm sure a lot of your students feel that way.
I've had some people come to me at the end of class and say, wow, that message really spoke to me, or wow, whatever you were, speaking of today. Because again, I'll take my own sorrows into the class, sometimes I'll be telling you what I need to hear.
Right.
What I need to hear, that saying it out loud and reminding you is really reminding myself.
Right.
And when you were saying, some days that you feel
I was down, or
that you're down, or we all have those days.
Yeah.
And it's not to deny those days. And some days, you know what? I say take a day and be sad, because you need to feel your feelings. You need to feel it to
and
heal
acknowledge it.
You need to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But don't get stuck in it.
Right.
So even on those days where you are feeling really down, if just getting out of bed and having a shower and getting dressed is all that you did, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? For me, though, when I'm really down, I think a shower is really important, because I do like a mental meditation, like to wash away. Wash away.
That's a good technique.
Yeah, absolutely. So on those
technique.
really down days where you really feel like you don't want to get out of bed, I highly recommend that you at least get out of bed and have a shower.
Yeah.
And mental meditate, like wash that, there is I'm going to wash that gray right out of my hair. You can wash that sad right out of your hair.
Yeah.
It's not to say that you're going to be happy when you come out, but there is something about feeling fresher.
Right.
I say you don't need to do yoga, because I appreciate yoga's not forever. Some people will say, well, yoga's just not for me, and I'm not going to push it down your throat. But everybody should stretch, and everybody should have a breathing break, is what I tell people. If you're not into the word meditation, give yourself a breathing break.
Right.
Because they say that 10 minutes of intentional breathing can be as restorative to the body as 8 hours sleep.
Oh, wow.
Well, because most people don't even really sleep 8 hours. And if you think about it, that's when you're healing and the repair happens for your body. So anyone who doesn't have a good sleep pattern will feel a little bit more anxious or stressed.
Right.
Because you're not getting what your body needs.
Yeah.
Right? Your body needs that time. So there is validation in saying that you need 7 to 8 hours sleep. And I've naturally always done that. I mean, yes, there are nights where I get the 3 or 5 hours sleep, whether it's to stress or, festivals, in my younger days. I can't do that anymore. But consistently on the normal, I do sleep 7 to 8 hours, which I also believe is a big part of being able to be present for myself.
Right. I hope everyone can hear the theme that when you go to a yoga class with Julie, you not only get the stretching and the flow, but you also get that mental exercise and that stretching in almost your mind and soul. That comes up over and over, and I think let's start addressing that too. So I think that's all a part of self-love.
Absolutely.
Right? So what does self-love mean to you?
Self-love is really self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, being comfortable in my own skin. And that doesn't have anything to do with weight or, how I'm dressed. It's internal.
Yes.
And the biggest thing for me, I realized in the last few years, was self-forgiveness. Because so people talk about self-love, and anyone who's known me would never think that, everybody thinks I'm a very confident person. But again, I'm a human being. I have my insecurities, but I have to sometimes self-talk, like, okay, girl, no, come on, just hold your head up high, walk in, smile. You got this.
Right.
You're scared, but so is everyone else.
Exactly.
As much as I'd like to think, Lily, I'm not special. We all have the same. We're all special.
We are all special.
We all have a story.
That's right.
It just depends on how you tell your story. And I've chosen to come from a place of being a survivor rather than a victim.
Right.
I realized a few years ago that I was self-sabotaging myself consistently because I hadn't really forgiven myself for past mistakes, because I didn't give myself the time to heal, right? I've always been really good with moving forward, keep going, keep pushing forward, keep moving, because that's what we do. We're strong. But then those hurt feelings that I never heal, they creep in every once in a while. And then you overreact about something that didn't need the reaction that you gave it, but it's from holding on to that pain that I never allowed myself to heal, which is when I did my first yoga class that I loved, and the instructor was like, open your heart. And I was in this pose, opening my heart. I just started bawling my eyes out because something that I had sort of forgotten about came to the surface because I gave myself that time to sit in it.
Yes.
And then I cried and I let it go. Yeah. So it's not about ignoring the pain, and it's not about dwelling in it either.
No.
Right?
And I've experienced it in your class.
You can't dwell.
Right.
Because then that just makes you the victim. Right? And some situations, like, please, I totally understand. Some situations are far more critical in your life than others. I mean, there's some things that, I couldn't even imagine happening to me. But those are the times we need to look for the lesson. We need to remind ourselves of our blessings. And as long as you're doing the best that you can, don't be hard on yourself.
Right.
Right?
But that's a part of self-love too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Self-love is about being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you can't really give to anybody until you give to yourself.
Yes.
One of my favorite things that I always remind people of is when you're on a plane. They always say, put the mask on yourself, even if you're a parent. Because what do we want to do as parents? We want to take that mask and put it on our child.
Right.
First.
Yes.
Now, what happens if you put that mask on your child and then you lose your breath and then you're done?
Yeah.
If you put the mask on yourself, now you can
actually help. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you need to help yourself. You need to fill up your own cup. You need to.
Yeah.
You can't look at anybody else to make you happy. I mean, people are icing to the cake.
Yeah.
And we all need people.
Right.
Connection, I feel, is a basic human need, just like food and air and water. You don't need a specific person, though. I'd like to say that because some people get stuck in the, I need you. You don't need me, and sometimes people will stray away from their yoga practice with me because they've outgrown my style, and you go to someone else, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt my ego. It doesn't hurt my ego anymore either if someone comes into the class and does their own little thing at the back of the room because I look at it as you're honoring your body.
Right. That's
right.
true.
Some people might just want to come in and feed off the energy in the room.
Right.
Listen to my cool playlist. But I mean, they follow the guidelines. But like, there's certain moments where I'll give you some freedom, or I'll say, let's work on this pose, and someone will work on something else. When I first started teaching, I remember it was to my ego, like, hey, what's that person doing? But then to let go of it and be like, no, they're honoring their body, and them doing their own thing wasn't a reflection of me. It was what they needed.
That's right.
But I was taking it personally because of my ego.
But if you translate that into life, right? And you look and you go, okay, we're doing things together, but this person is more comfortable doing something else in that same time and sharing the same space. You could take that personally and say, why am I not entertaining enough? Am I not exciting enough to keep your attention? But maybe it is what that person may need in that moment.
Absolutely.
Too. So I think you can take a lot of what you do in the yoga class into life. And this is why I love it so much, and I can't stop coming to your class.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Obviously, in the journey of self-love, there's often bumps, and I'm sure there are a lot of challenges. What are maybe example of one big challenge that you have gone through in the journey of self-love, and what did you do to overcome that?
When I first started yoga teacher training, I remember I think maybe we were 3 or 4 classes in, and then just sitting and asking myself if I was good enough to be a yoga instructor. Because for me, yoga instructors were like of a higher energy, a higher power, almost like a priest, if you will, in a church. Because when I would go to yoga for myself, it was like a sanctuary, right? It wasn't gospel, but it does talk a lot about life healing, transformation, things that help you grow as an individual. So for me, I thought, I'm a sinner. I'm not worthy of teaching other people. Like, how can I talk about self-love if I'm not even loving myself? And again, as I said earlier, if you knew me, you don't think that I never struggled with self-love, but I come to realize that that's been my biggest. Is the self-love, accepting myself with my flaws, forgiving myself, letting go of the guilt and shame. And not just, it's guilt and shame that's put onto us from generations before us.
Yes. Because
the generations before us were taught not to talk about feelings. And stress is the number one killer, right? So it's important to talk about your feelings. So I remember sitting in the teacher training thinking, wow, maybe I'm not good enough for this. Because people would say to me, do you know how hard it is to get certified in yoga? And, it's hours and hours. And I would be like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough for it.
There's self-doubt.
So the self-doubt came in, but then I continued for a personal growth. So, I thought, maybe I'm not going to take this and be an instructor, but it really helped me to open myself up, my own personal journey.
Right.
So then the teacher training, completes, and then I started volunteering a lot. So I volunteered with youth and in senior homes because I wanted to share my love for the movement of the body, just in realizing that just moving your body every day helps to release some stress.
Right.
And at that time, I wasn't really comfortable talking about my own personal struggles, which I think is, again, what makes my class maybe a little bit more unique because I'm so real.
Yeah.
So then the more I...
Relatable. Because we are all struggling.
Yeah, we are all struggling. We all struggle. And I think we forget that sometimes. Because sometimes we look at somebody and go, oh, they've got this or they've got that. They got a nice car, a nice house. But
and
that
social
doesn't
media,
make that they're happy.
Social media doesn't help either.
No,
because everybody's
not.
posting their best look and the best view of everything in their life out there. And sometimes it's not even true half of the time.
Right.
But then everybody's then, like you said, comparing each other on social media, right?
Absolutely.
And that's not, sometimes can be very negative for one's self-confidence.
So what I realized was the more I practiced, the more I fell in love with myself, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Right.
And I wanted to share that with people.
See, that's in essence self-love.
You're
not doing it for anybody else. You're doing it for yourself.
For myself. And some people, I know can look and go, oh, she's ridiculous for what she's saying or what she posted. She's a 45-year-old woman. That's ridiculous. Maybe that's ridiculous in your world, but I wasn't always comfortable talking about these things. I've struggled.
Right.
It took me a long time to be able to say I am a healer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because who am I to say that? I used to think like, come on. But we are all healers. We are all here to help each other. And the more aware you are of your energy and how your energy affects other people and how their energy affects you, then the easier this journey gets.
Right. And I think the stronger you are yourself, the more that you've practiced the self-love, the more than you can offer others.
And I don't think I'm perfect because it's. I think it's also in coming into accepting your flaws.
Yes.
Because we all have them. So I am aware of my flaws. So because I'm aware of them, there's nothing you can do to hurt me about my flaws.
Right. You acknowledge it.
I acknowledge them.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I am who I am because of the mistakes that I made.
And the journey
that I've taken.
Yeah.
Those things shape me and I like who I am today. I mean, do I still want to improve? Absolutely. But I think that we should all continue to be students of life. We should always be trying to do better, a little bit better every day, because you can't do better until you know better.
Right.
And I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything, and I have an open mind to learning.
Good. I was actually just going to ask you what's next for Julie. So I think that's kind of a good segue. You're going to continue learning, but what else are you going to do? What's next station for Julie?
So people always ask me if I plan on opening a yoga studio, and I mean it's not something that I would say I will never do, but it's not important to me right now because my goal is just to share my passion with as many people as possible. So lately I've been doing some retreats, some workshops with people, just doing various things to help promote self-love, self-worth, and encourage people to move your body, breathe deeply. Amazing. And no, you don't need to go to a yoga class to do that. Right. You just need to come to center. And that's why I was saying earlier, going outside for me, watching a sunset is the most glorious. Like I'm very present. I'm not thinking about anything else. Because even when we are trying to sit outside, sometimes we narrate to ourselves, oh, the birds are singing. Oh, there was a brisk breeze. Or we're constantly telling ourselves what's going on. But it's just to sit and just be present is when all the answers come
to you. Yeah.
And so I like to sit outside and just listen to the birds, but I don't find myself telling myself anymore, the birds are singing. Listening.
You're being a part of that nature.
I'm being
almost.
a part of it, and it fills me up.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So great, aspiration of wanting to do the studio. And then, of course, looking at potentially helping more people with self-love through maybe engagements of events like workshops and things like that sounds like is what you're pursuing
Yes.
kind of next. That's great. We're going to go into our last segment of the podcast, which is In Search of True Fulfillment. It's going to be typically the same questions for every guest. And I'm going to basically ask you to describe something in very short, one sentence or in 10 seconds. How do you define success?
For me, success is finding balance, happiness.
Nice. My next question was, how do you find happiness? But I think you
Happiness is, for me, is the balance physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Nice. Nicely put. Do you feel that you found that in your life? On both accounts?
Absolutely. Yoga's helped me find that. Yoga's helped me to definitely come into more balance. And as I was saying earlier, to accept that not every day is going to be great and there's still bad things that are going to happen along my journey, but I'm going to look for the lessons in them,
Right.
rather than the downfall, because everything has two sides to it, yin yang, light dark. So yes, when something bad happens, I look at it as there's a lesson that I need to learn from this.
Right. For the listeners out there, what do you say is one thing that someone can take away from the story that you've shared today to ignite or harvest their own inner sparks?
Just always remember that you're worthy. And if you have a passion, follow it. Find your bliss, because that's where your happiness lies.
Right.
Don't give up on yourself.
Nice. So, Julie, I want to thank you again for joining us and sharing your wonderful story. And thank you for being one of my inspirations for this network. And as you said, if you find what you want to do, go for it and do it. And that's precisely what I'm doing.
Yay.
So to all the listeners, we're so grateful for you tuning into this. And you can find Julie on Facebook and Instagram. I will share her information on the episode summary and on all of my social platform as well. Please use it and join her social network. And then if you have any special events you like to engage a highly skilled yoga instructor, please keep Julie in mind, and she'll be happy to discuss those opportunities with you. So thank you again for joining us for this extraordinary story with Julie.
Thank you, Lily. Namaste.
Thanks. Namaste. Your thoughts on this episode is encouraged on all our social media sites, which are listed in the podcast description. We'll have some engaging questions on the social media sites about topics touched upon within this podcast, where you can interact with one another. Feel free to share your own related experiences, what you have learned from this podcast, and what you will take away as actions. While we understand not everyone will agree on each topic, please always exercise mutual respect as we interact with one another. This network is a safe place for everyone to learn and grow. If you have any feedback on this podcast, the social media sites, and this network as a whole, please feel free to email me at ourinnersparks@gmail.com. Should you or someone in your life have an inspiring story you would like to see shared in our network, please feel free to email me with a nomination for future features. Thank you for listening to this episode of Our Inner Sparks Featured Stories.
Once again, you close your eyes and mentally scan over your body. This time I hope feeling the benefits of your practice. My wish for you is that your muscles feel limber, your heart open to the possibilities that await you, overall feeling refreshed, relaxed, and renewed. At the very least, I hope you're using your full lung capacity to breathe fully. Remember, the simple act of focusing on your breath, your breathing, can help control stress and anxiety in your body. When you're breathing short, you're creating messages of distress to your body. When you breathe fully, you allow your whole body and your mind to relax. Taking a moment gratitude. Thinking of a few things every day that you're thankful for will bring many more blessings and much more joy into your daily life. So thankful to each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to join me. Still our practice, we'll inhale the arms up, bringing the palms together. As we exhale to the forehead for kind thoughts, to the mouth for kind words, to the heart center for kindness overall. But most importantly, friends, be kind to yourself because you're worthy. If you forget, come back and I'll remind you as many times as you need to be reminded. The light in me honors and bows to the light in you. Namaste. Thank you.